Hi, this is Ms. Fazone, and this is Pre-Calculus Graphing Rational Functions. Alright, so let's talk about what a rational function is. Well, rational, if you remember a rational number is a fraction. So a rational function is a fractional function. And typically, there is a variable in the denominator. So a function where there's a variable in the denominator. All right, so let's start with our parent function, 1 over x. All right, so whenever you have a new function that you don't know what it looks like, the best thing to do is plug numbers in. So let's plug in some numbers. I like to start with -3 to 3. That's what I just always start with. Okay. So we're plugging into the function 1 over x. So what do you get when you plug -3 in? That's just 1 over -3. -2, 1 over -2, -1. What do you get when you plug 0 in? What is that? That's undefined. You can't do 1, 0. So this is undefined. Okay. How about 1? 1 over 1 is 1. 1 over 2 is a half. And a third. Okay, so let's plot these points. We have -3, negative a third. It's like right there. -2, negative a half. -1, -1. 1, 1. 2 a half. 3 a third. All right, so was that helpful? Do we know what this thing looks like? Yeah, no, we have no idea. This is awkward, right? Okay, so let's think of the extreme numbers. What happens if I plugged in 10? That's 1 over 10. 100. Whoops. 100 would be 1 over 100. A million. 1 over a million. So what's happening as the x's get really big? The y value is getting really little. 1 over a billion. 1 over a trillion. So what's happening here is it's getting like really close to the x-axis, but it's never going to cross it. It never can cross it because you're never going to get 0 when you divide 1 over something. And the same thing's happening this way. Okay. It's getting really close. It's getting really close to 0, but it's never going to reach it. Okay? So it kind of just skids along the x-axis. Now let's think about what's happening between -a half and a half, okay? Or -1 and a 1. All right, so let's say I plugged in a half. What do you get when you plug in a half? That's 1 over a half. What's 1 over a half equal to? 1 divided in half is 2. Think of a pizza. You divide a pizza in half, you have 2 pieces, okay? How about a third? That's 3. How about a tenth? That's 10. A hundredth? 100. So it's kind of the opposite of what we just did. As the x value gets really little, as you're plugging tiny fractions in, it's getting really big. So as it gets closer to 0, the y value is getting really high. Okay? So what's happening is this thing is going up like this. And then the same thing just on the negative side over here. So again, you'll never get to 0, but it gets really close. So this is what a hyperbola looks like, and they all basically look the same. Okay, so what is an asymptote? An asymptote is a line that a graph will never cross. You want to think of it as a boundary. Think of it as a boundary, okay? There's 2 types of asymptotes we're going to talk about. Vertical and horizontal. Okay? A vertical asymptote and a horizontal asymptote. Okay? All right, so let's look at another example. So we're not going to plug in anymore. we're going to have a little method to do this. Let me zoom in a little bit. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find our asymptotes. Okay, so our vertical is the easy one. Our vertical asymptote is basically just the domain. What can you not have when you have a fraction? You cannot have 0 in the denominator. So you're going to set the denominator equal to 0. We did this when we found domain and range. Okay, set the bottom equal to 0. Minus 3. X equals -3 is your vertical asymptote. The graph will never cross that line. Okay. Horizontal asymptote's a little different.